So this video is a first impressions of Oath, the new Kickstarter game from Leader Games. I was fortunate to be able to play it at Pax South this maybe just a couple days ago. And as you can see, it's a very early copy of it. They have the art for it taped to the front of a box. Let me talk about a few things I learned. It may be widely available on the internet, it may not. So the first is that they're working on a storage solution for the cards, so you'll have past cards and future cards and current cards, and they're going to have some way of storing that. That kind of, I guess that's the legacy aspect of it, is that you add cards to the deck, you remove cards from the deck, and then you have location cards that may be randomized or not, depending on how the game ended. They showed me how that worked. It's an interesting mechanism. It's kind of like Legacy Light, I would say, where things change for you, but it's not maybe like a Legacy game where it's drastic. Or some Legacy games where it's drastic. The other thing I learned from them is that they're not going to repeat I guess what I would consider a mistake with Vast Mysterious Manor. Oath won't be available in retail initially. It'll eventually be available in retail. So, if you're concerned about that, they don't intend on repeating that mistake this time around. So let's take a look at the pictures here. So as you can see, this is the and after I show you the pictures that I took, it's just a few, I will talk about my experiences, what I think of Oath, etc. So this is you can see in the background the game. I think this might have been while we were playing it. I think it was. And then this is maybe the box artwork. Maybe it's going to change. There's still a lot of things changing. There's some pieces of paper on top of the board for things that just recently changed in the design. So it's definitely in flux. And I'll also say, for any of the things I say here, they could change by the time they get to the final game. Maybe some of my negative things may improve by then. Hopefully they keep the positive stuff. So this is a couple of the guys from Leader Games. I'm not in the picture because I was playing yellow. This is just when they were setting up. So you can see the initial locations in each of the Cradle, the provinces, and the hinterland. Then you can see the face-down site cards, which you have to explore, which I think is a cool mechanic. Having a little bit of exploration in the game is cool. You can see the randomized track of the different factions, which can change each game. Over here you can see the military track. You can see the deck of cards and the discard piles, which will eventually show there. The victory point tracks, 2 of them. One for the people that are like part of the city or part of the ruling class, and one for the rest of the folks, the exiles. And the track over here for extra card expense for drawing. And finally, the in-game track, I would say, is basically, as this moves around, the game gets more and more likely to end with whoever's meeting the condition in the center being the winner. So, let's see here. So this is a close-up of it. We're a little bit I guess we're a little bit closer to setting up. We have the initial seeded money. We have the Chancellor set up here, and we're starting to set up the board. And now this is well into the game, so you can see the victory point tracks. I have a couple visions, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We've explored all the areas, and we have like guys out. I guess I'm doing an okay job controlling some of this stuff. And we have a Chancellor and a Citizen Exile with a Conquest. Actually, this is like, I think right before the game ended. Yeah, actually. Okay, so there's my pictures. Well, I'll leave this one up for a little bit while I talk about some stuff, just in case I want to describe things. So let me talk about the positives first. So I think the artwork looks really good. It's the same illustrator as Root, who I guess is their main artist now, or maybe has been for a while. I don't know the details on that. And I think it looks better in person than on the pictures. I think it's a really good style. I think a lot of people like it. It works really well. I really like the... I don't know if you can see here. Let's see. Whoops. Let me see if I can zoom in. Yeah. So right here, we have this. So I like, actually, we'll talk about this. I like the variable location setup. So whenever you do a legacy or a follow-on game, these 3 spaces could be populated with the spaces that the person that won with controlled at the end. And then these other ones will be randomly populated face down. So 2 spaces in the hinterlands, 2 in the provinces, and 1 in the cradle. I really like that. I think it changes up the game. It keeps some like, okay, these were good spaces last time, and or good for the person that won, basically. The other thing I like is this effort track and action points system that they have. So basically you can take up to 3 actions, and it costs you so many action points. So if you want to draw cards and play a card, you get you spend X of your resources to draw more cards. You travel, it costs you... Traveling is really expensive in this, so you're not going to travel very much. That was actually one of my problems at the end, and we had a couple locations that made traveling even more difficult, and it was a really, really difficult thing in this game. Mustering, you're going to do a lot. It's not that expensive. It costs money, which I didn't have any, or favor, I guess. And then you can campaign, which is basically attack or rest, and that moves your track back. I like the fact that when you get war bands and you haven't played them, you can't spend effort too far, which is a good mechanic. I think it works really well. I like the fact that it has this turn, essentially this kind of length of game track. So you're like, maximum you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 turns at maximum. Our game ended 6 turns in, which I think is middle of the road. It could end before this. It could end after it, but you're fixed. It's a fixed length game, and I think it works well with it. I really liked how the combat system worked. So the way the combat works in this game is when you attack someone, you can attack multiple locations, and you're going to calculate your overall advantage. And this one is on 3-1, so you're in the blue if you're in 3-1, or in 2-1, 1-1 if you're greater than, or if you're 1-2. Then you're going to roll some of these dice. Let's see if there's a picture of them here. Where are they? Oh, here they are. And roll some of these dice, which have like a -2, a ×2, a 0, and I think a +1 and a -1, maybe? I forget. Yeah, I think 1 + 1, 1 -1. And you're going to roll the number of them based on the number of places you're attacking, if I remember right. So if you attack 2 places, you have to roll 2 dice. 3 places, you roll 3 dice. It's a higher risk. And then, so that'll modify it and move you up, usually down, but sometimes up this track. And then you just expend the war bands on the table to move it back, and you got to be in the blue to win. If you win blue, then you destroy the other guys, and if you have guys left, you conquer the territories and get the bonuses for that. So I think the combat system works really well in this game. And as I talked about earlier, the evolution of the game. So the fact that you can carry stuff forward to the next game, I think is a unique way of doing it. I think after this game comes out, some other games are probably going to look at doing a similar system as kind of like a legacy light. So those are all the good things about the game. Let me talk about the neutral. This is kind of stuff that I don't know which way I'd go on it after one play. So the first one is the vision system. So it's hard to see here, but as you're drawing cards, sometimes you'll draw vision cards, and you can place them face down in the right-hand side of this, or if you reveal them, you place them face up, and you can complete the visions. Now, I guess the problem I see with the visions is that there's this giant deck here, and you're basically going through looking for these visions in a lot of ways, because if you're not part of the ruling class, I find it really hard to win without having a vision. And so you're basically trying to find these visions in this deck, and you spend a lot of time doing it. Now, I had 2 visions out, and it just happened that I drew ones that didn't work well with the strategy I had picked earlier. And I think that, I don't know, maybe rethinking the system a little bit or improving it in some way might be beneficial. The second thing I'm neutral on, and this could be also improved over time, is the card balance. I felt like, so I went through and drew a lot of cards in this game, and I needed to look, basically I needed to get, there was a couple of these different houses, or I think they're houses, yeah. And I kept never getting those houses. The other thing is, I kept never getting any cards that were, so the other thing I could get is card that was useful for something I was doing. I also wasn't getting that. So I was basically getting cards that were almost completely worthless to me, and I got many times in the game. And I think that maybe at least some of these buildings and some of the things you play are amazing. Like, they are really, really good cards, and they're probably always good. And then there's some that are like situationally good, and I find that there's a lot of situationally good cards and very few like always good cards or almost always good cards. So probably in time, maybe the card balance will change a little bit. I know this is an early version of the game, but I think that's something to look at. Finally, let's talk about the negatives. So there's, I would say, 2 negative things about this game. 2 negative things that I wrote down. The first one is the balance between the Exiles and the Chancellor team. So initially, this Chancellor, we'll look at it over here. This guy, Chancellor, starts off, he only gets 2 actions a turn instead of 3. But he can invite a person into his kingdom as a citizen, and he can kick him out later. So really what the Chancellor wants to do is invite someone in, keep him around for a while, and then kick him out, because he needs his help. This guy needs to win before the Chancellor kicks you out, or figure out a way to keep yourself in the game. And then you have the Exiles, which essentially are kind of working together, but also kind of not. They don't want each other to win, and they don't want these guys to win. So it's a very difficult place to be. And what we found is, at least I did after one game, is that because these have 5 actions that are working against 2 people that are not really combining to work against the Chancellor with 6 actions total, it's really hard to win because both of these guys use all these pieces, and they can muster and use each other's pieces. It makes it very hard. Now, the earlier version of the game, when they became citizens, they got 2 actions each, which maybe was imbalanced there too, and it was too weak, but maybe there's some other tweaking that can be done. Maybe leave it at 2 actions and at least balance it that way, because it was really hard to deal with this. The final, I guess, negative is what someone described as like beat the leader, and I think Root maybe suffers from this a little bit. I think this game is more so because it has a very limited time. So what tends to happen is you have a person that's going to win at the start of their turn, and if you don't stop them from winning, they're going to win if they have a vision out. So everyone is trying to stop that person, essentially. And it kind of goes around like that, and it went around like that for a little while in this game, but I could see if you were good at this game, it could go around like this for many turns. Like, someone could be winning maybe on turn 3, and you just have to keep him from winning in order to allow you to win, obviously. And I think that problem is exacerbated by the fact that the Chancellor could potentially have a team, and you might not have a team. So I don't actually know how this negative is going to be fixed. I still think it could be a fun game with it, but I don't know if it's a game that I would want to play a lot, just because I think it could wear on you with basically, you know, I feel like a game that if you're doing really well at, you should be able to win. And in this case, that winning is because of there's a huge incentive to stop someone from winning, and a lot of ability to stop someone from winning. There's a lot of stuff you can do that can prevent someone from winning in this game. So I think having and I actually don't know how to fix that one. The balance thing is probably an easier thing to fix, and obviously with Root it wasn't that much of a problem. But Root was, I think, a longer game than this. So in terms of number of turns you got, and I think the victory conditions there were, I guess even Vast suffered from this to some extent. So I don't think it's new to his designs, but I think that if he could take his designs and limit that factor a little bit, it would make for a better game. So with that, let's go back to Oath. So those are my thoughts on Oath. If you enjoyed this video, please like and please subscribe, and please take a look at our other videos. Thank you.